We are going back in time to 415 AD, and what happens next is insane. A woman, literally one of the smartest people on the planet, is just riding in her chariot when she gets ambushed by an angry mob. But this isn't just any mob. These guys are fanatics, and they are about to do something so brutal it's been talked about for thousands of years. They literally used sharp pottery to tear the flesh from her bones. This is the insane story of Hypatia, a woman murdered for being too smart. But who was this woman, and how did things get this bad? To figure that out, we have to go back to a city that was basically the center of the ancient world, and to a mind that was its brightest light. Before everything went completely downhill, there was Alexandria. This city was the place to be. Founded by Alexander the Great himself, this place was built on knowledge. I'm talking about the legendary Library of Alexandria and the museum, which was like the biggest university you could imagine. It was a total melting pot of cultures, making it the perfect place for big ideas. And it's into this epic city that Hypatia was born around the year 355 or 370 AD. Her dad was Theon of Alexandria, a super famous mathematician and the last known boss of the Alexandrian Museum. In a time when women were basically told to stay home, he did something completely unheard of. He saw his daughter was a genius and decided to train her to be his intellectual equal, an absolute legend. Under her dad's training, Hypatia went all in on the world of Greek math and astronomy. Together, they worked to save and explain the most important books of their time. It's believed Hypatia even edited Book 3 of Ptolemy's Almagest, the single most important astronomy book in the entire ancient world. She also wrote her own guides for crazy difficult books on algebra and geometry. Her work wasn't about making brand new discoveries, but something even more important in a collapsing empire. She made sure all this genius-level knowledge didn't get lost forever. She was a master teacher, making impossible ideas simple for a new generation. But she wasn't just about numbers and stars. She was drawn to philosophy, specifically Neoplatonism. This wasn't a religion, but a way of thinking that used pure reason to understand the universe. For Hypatia, science and philosophy were the same thing, a massive quest to understand everything. By the year 400 AD, Hypatia's brilliance was off the charts. She became the head of her own philosophy school in Alexandria, a position of insane prestige that no woman had ever held before. Her lectures were legendary. Students from all over the empire, pagans, Jews, and even top Christians traveled to learn from her. One of her biggest fans, Synesius of Cyrene, later became a Christian bishop, but still looked up to her his entire life, writing her letters and asking for her advice. People who lived back then said she had an incredible public presence. In an era that demanded women be quiet and modest, Hypatia broke all the rules. She wore the robes of a scholar, something usually only for men, and moved through the city with total confidence. She would show up in front of leaders and crowds, speaking with an authority that everyone respected. The 5th century historian Socrates Scholasticus wrote, "For all men on account of her extraordinary dignity and virtue admired her the more. She was a public intellectual, a trusted advisor, and a living symbol of the classic world. Her house was the place to be for Alexandria's political elite. She was, by all accounts, one of the most brilliant minds of her time. But the world she knew was dying, and the forces that would destroy her were already getting stronger. The Alexandria that made Hypatia a star was basically a ticking time bomb. The old pagan world, with all its gods and philosophies, was losing to the unstoppable rise of Christianity. Once persecuted, it was now the official religion of the empire, and its leaders were becoming major power players. And this was not a friendly takeover. Alexandria was ground zero for insane riots between pagans, Jews, and Christians. In 391 AD, Things got crazy. The Christian patriarch, Theophilus, followed the emperor's orders and led a mob to destroy pagan temples all over the city. Their biggest prize was the Serapeum, a magnificent temple that was also a sister institution to the Great Library. Its destruction was a huge statement. The time for debating ideas was over. Hypatia navigated this insane new world with incredible skill. She was still a pagan, believing in her Neoplatonist philosophy that put reason first. But she was famously tolerant, teaching Christian students and staying friends with people from all religions. She seemed to be above all the fighting, a figure of unity in a city that was tearing itself apart. But in a world this divided, being neutral can be a threat. Her entire existence was an insult to the new wave of religious fanatics. She represented the old way of thinking, where wisdom came from logic, not just faith. In 412, Theophilus died, and his nephew, Cyril, took over as patriarch. This guy was on a whole other level of extreme. He saw it as his mission to make Christianity the only power in the city. He quickly got into a conflict with the city's large Jewish community, which led to riots and violence. After the fighting, Cyril's followers destroyed the city's synagogues and kicked out a huge portion of Alexandria's Jews. This move was a direct challenge to the government. The Roman governor of Egypt, a man named Orestes, was furious. Orestes was a Christian, but he was a Roman official first, and he saw what Cyril did as a dangerous power grab. This started an all-out war between the two most powerful men in the city, Orestes, the governor, and Cyril, the patriarch. It got bad fast. A mob of 500 monks, who were basically Cyril's hype men, ambushed Orestes in the street. They yelled at him, called him a secret pagan, and one monk, Ammonius, threw a rock that hit the governor in the head and made him bleed. Orestes' guards ran away, but the people of Alexandria, shocked by the attack on their governor, came to help him. Orestes had Ammonius publicly tortured to death. In a wild political move, Cyril tried to make the dead monk a saint, but it totally backfired. Even many Christians were disgusted by it. The city was about to explode. On one side was Cyril with his army of religious fanatics. On the other was Orestes, representing the power of the Roman Empire. And Hypatia was stuck right in the middle. Hypatia wasn't trying to be a politician, but she was so influential she couldn't avoid it. She was a close friend and trusted advisor to the governor, Orestes. With all the chaos from his feud with Cyril, Orestes was constantly asking for her advice. It makes sense. Hypatia was respected by everyone, pagans and moderate Christians. She was seen as wise and fair. Her home was a gathering place for the city's most important people, a space where logic still mattered. To Orestes, she was a powerful ally, a symbol of the educated world he was trying to protect. But to Cyril and his crew, this was not a good look. They started spreading some crazy rumors, saying she was a dangerous pagan sorceress. They claimed she was using satanic wiles to stop the governor from making peace with the bishop. And the craziest part? The slander worked. Hypatia became public enemy number one, the target for all the hate aimed at Orestes and the old guard. She was an easier target. Orestes was the governor, surrounded by guards. Hypatia was a private citizen, a woman riding through the city in her chariot, totally exposed. To the fanatics, she was the root of the entire problem. They believed if they could just get rid of her, Orestes would have to give in to their leader. She was the linchpin holding Orestes' resistance to Cyril together. Her intellectual authority gave his fight a moral weight it wouldn't have had otherwise. She was a living symbol of a world Cyril was trying to destroy. The battle between the two men was a battle for the soul of Alexandria. Would the city be run by Roman law and reason, or by the absolute power of the church? In this fight, Hypatia, whether she liked it or not, was on one side, and the other side had decided she had to be eliminated. The ancient historian Socrates Scholasticus, writing just a few decades later, said the motive was pure political jealousy. For as she had frequent interviews with Orestes, it was calumniously reported among the Christian populace that it was she who prevented Orestes from being reconciled to the bishop. The rumors got worse. The hate got bigger. The stage was set for one of the most horrific crimes in the ancient world. In March of 415 AD, during the season of Lent, the plot against Hypatia came to its terrifying end. As she was going home, her path was blocked by a mob. And these weren't just random people. They were a horde of angry men led by a minor church official named Peter. Many were probably the Parabolani, a group of monks who acted as the bishop's enforcers, known for both helping the sick and for extreme violence. Driven by a fanaticism that didn't care about God or the law, they swarmed her chariot and dragged the philosopher into the street. They pulled her toward a church called the Chariot, a building that used to be a pagan temple but was now a symbol of Cyril's total control. Inside the church, the unthinkable happened. The mob, in a complete frenzy, tore the clothes off her body. What came next was an act of unbelievable barbarism. They murdered her, not with a fast weapon, but with ostraka, sharp, broken pieces of pottery. They used these crude tools to scrape the flesh from her bones. And even that wasn't enough. They tore her body limb from limb, dragged her mangled remains to a place called Cineron, and set them on fire. This wasn't just a murder. It was designed to completely erase a symbol, to purify the city of her influence through a massive public act of brutality. The historian Socrates Scholasticus concluded, "This affair brought not the least opprobrium, not only upon Cyril, but also upon the whole Alexandrian church, and surely nothing can be farther from the spirit of Christianity than the allowance of massacres, fights, and transactions of that sort." Hypatia's murder was so shocking it was heard across the entire Roman Empire. Cyril was never officially charged, which is unbelievable. Some of his followers even celebrated her death, calling him a hero for destroying the last bits of paganism. For Cyril, the murder was a huge political win. Without his most important advisor, Orestes' power completely crumbled. The governor just disappears from history after this, his fight against the patriarch totally over. Cyril would later be made into a saint, but Hypatia's legacy was way bigger. Her death became a powerful symbol. For many, it marked the official end of classical antiquity. The final brutal moment the light of Greek reason was snuffed out. It was free thought getting slaughtered by fanaticism. For centuries, her story was mostly forgotten, but she was rediscovered during the Enlightenment. Thinkers from that time turned her into a martyr for science and reason, a hero who stood up to religious intolerance. More recently, she has become a feminist icon, a pioneering woman who shattered her society's rules for women, ran a school, advised rulers, and became a top intellectual in fields dominated by men. Hypatia's life and death are a timeless and tragic warning. She was a casualty in a war between two worlds, a brilliant mind caught in the crossfire of political ambition and religious extremism. She lived at a time when the space for open discussion was closing, and when a woman with unbelievable intelligence could become the target for all the fear and hate of a society in chaos. Though her original books are gone, destroyed by the same forces that killed her, her story survives. It reminds us that knowledge is fragile, that reason can't defend itself, and that the forces of intolerance are always waiting to crush the voices they can't control. Hypatia of Alexandria remains a symbol of intellectual courage, a martyr for philosophy, and a star that was brutally torn from the sky, but whose light continues to shine. If you think this story is as insane as I do, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the dramatic lives that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what you think Hypatia's most important legacy is today. Thank you for watching.